call the roll, please.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Brew? Here. Ms. Shirk?
Here.
Mr. Templeton?
Here.
Ms. Wiley?
Present.
Ms. Zaror?
Present.
Mr. Davis? Mr. Roderick?
Here.
Mr. Morgan?
Here.
Mr. Roberson?
Here.
Mr. Potter? And Chair Cooney.
Here. Thank you. We're here tonight on the Eastgate Commerce Center CID petition for North Point Development. Someone is going to speak to that from the city, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So North Point is seeking a CID. The purpose of that CID will be to impose a 1-cent sales tax for businesses that locate within the Eastgate Commerce Center and have this location as their point of sale. As part of that, they also seek to impose a special assessment in the amount of 5 cents per square foot of occupied and constructed buildings within the district. Those funds will be used to reimburse project costs associated with public infrastructure improvements. And with that, we have the applicant here, and they can give their presentation.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for that, and good evening, members of the commission. My name is Johnny Sweeney with North Point Development. Thanks for joining us again. I certainly didn't think we'd be back before you so quickly. So thanks for all your efforts reviewing this project. I know there might be a couple new faces, so just where we wanted to start at a high level was just, the plan that you've seen before and some of the projections that we have. And what I wanted to share is the reason we're back tonight is we've had some really productive conversations with the city on how to tackle some of these infrastructure costs and then the maintenance associated with those. And so what I'm going to do in just a few slides here is kind of walk you through how this would be structured, and then happy to answer any questions that you have. So starting off, this is the boundary of the proposed CID here. And so I think, as you guys know very well, there's really two goals with the boundary. The first is make sure that it includes the generators, so what can actually produce the revenue to support the CID. So here you're going to see the buildings lightly outlined beneath the boundary. It's encompassing the whole park. And then the second piece of that is you want it to include areas that would have eligible costs to be reimbursed for. So you're going to see it run a little further south down Little Blue Parkway. You see Necessary Road go a little further south here as well. And the intent there is to be able to apply the revenues to those parts of the CID. So if you kind of look at this slide here, I guess I would encourage you to think of it as a left side and a right side. So on the left side of your screen here, this is the 1% sales tax that was mentioned. And what that would be focused on is the capital expenses made as part of this project. And we have a slide. We'll certainly walk through what some of those capital expenses are. And what this really is a way to share in those costs as those improvements are made. What I would mention tonight is that we don't know who our tenants are, as we discussed before, since this is a speculative development. And so there certainly could be eligible sales within the CID, or there may not be. So for the purposes of the chart at the bottom here, we didn't include any revenue there just to be conservative. But that's something we'll certainly be tracking and monitoring moving forward. And then sticking to kind of the last point on the left side here, the agreement we have, in principle with the city is that these costs should be shared proportionately in the amount that you invest. So the example we have here is if the city invests in Independence Power and Light, $8 million, and then North Point puts in $4 million on a variety of other things, that 2/3 of that should go to the city and 1/3 to North Point. So it's, again, a proportionate sharing. And then if you move to the right side, so that, again, the left side is capital expenses, capital costs, construction, things of that nature. The right side, this 5 cent per square foot special assessment, is really focused on the operational uses, so the ongoing maintenance, and making sure that the park and the surrounding area is kept to where it needs to be and can service the project that we're proposing here. So really what this is it's a source of funds for the city to keep these roads maintained. And then there's also an option within there where North Point, if we potentially are maintaining things, that we would be eligible to be reimbursed for that maintenance as well. Different than the 1% sales tax, that would be a more predictable and measurable amount. And so with that, we do have a projection at the bottom of the slide here. So the top row there is what you've seen before, what the property tax pilot would generate for the city. And then this 5 cent per square foot is that second row there, just over $10 million of what that would accrue over the course of 33 years. So I guess I might just pause there before I go to the next slide. Does that make sense, how there's kind of the capital side and then the more operational side and how we've drawn that up? Okay. And then really the last slide is, okay, well, what are you focusing the CID on? What are those items that are a part of this? And so this list here, and would certainly welcome any comments, but outlines everything from intersection improvements to trails, to power and light, to the mill and overlay, a wide variety of things. And then the column on the right side is who would be the source of those funds. So the developer here would be North Point. You're going to see the CID and the city on a few items there at the bottom. And with this, I did receive a question before that I thought would be helpful to address, and I certainly got some good help making sure I had the right answer. But on the special assessment piece, that property tax, the way that would be collected would be, it would go to Jackson County first, and then remit back to the CID. We anticipate that there will actually be a cooperative agreement with the city, where the city might go ahead and receive that in lieu of the CID, and the city would manage that. And then on the 1% sales tax, that would go to Department of Revenue, and then typically back to the CID. And in this case, we anticipate that would be handled similarly, where it would come back to the city via that cooperative agreement. So really with that, I know this is pretty concise, and this is a long list of things. We didn't think it was really in everyone's best interest to look at specific intersections and improvements, but we did want to list out everything that's being contemplated at this point. And with that, I would just take any questions that you have.
Questions from the commissioners?
I just want to clarify. So at this point, there's not a lot of opportunity for the revenue because this is a future rental, lease, occupant kind of situation. So is there any way to speculate on the tax, what the 1% could bring in, what the 5% can bring in? We don't have that slide, so I could not see it.
Oh, sorry about that. So I think the easiest one to speak to first, and it's a great question, because how do you project for something like that if you don't know? So the 5 cent per square foot, we are able to model what that is, and we did it the same way that we did the property tax projections of a phased plan. So it basically is conservative in that it says this is going to take 13 years to build out. It's not acting like we're paying 5 cents per square foot, and truly it would be the tenant up front. So it's basically a couple buildings a year that start getting added on there. and that total is the 10,097,700 here. So that we do have a pretty good sense for. The 1% sales tax, I would share that there's one park that I know that we have this in place in. It's out in Belton, and it's generating more than $1 million a year. And that obviously is dictated by taxable sales and the tenant there and what they're selling. But that's just, it truly is a wild card as far as who's there, how much they're selling, what that product is, and so forth. So that's why we kind of leave that as we just don't know at this point.
And then could you speak to, the perception is that the CID is coming late in the process. Could you kind of speak to that? What is this? Is this replacing other funds? Is this additional funds sought? And kind of expound on that.
Sure, I think that's a really fair question. What I had actually meant to say, and I jumped too early and said, can I answer any questions, is we had actually wanted to thank the city for this, because obviously this is a big project. There's a lot of components to it, and it's, as we go through the development agreement and we're going through the process, there's a lot of thought of, okay, as this comes online, how are we going to manage and handle all these things? So really would give a ton of credit to the city for diving in over the last 4 to 6 weeks to figure out that this is a true solution to handle not only some of those capital costs, but the ongoing maintenance. And so I think as far as late in the process, I just think it's evidence of detailed conversations that have been going on for some time. And originally we didn't think we might be here for months. And so while we are surprised to be back so quickly, we think it's great. I think it shows a good partnership with the city.
Other questions?
I have a question. Within the district, is there any room for retail, for example, like Quick Trip or something like that?
So the way the CID is drawn now, no, that's not part of the plan here. And I think, Chris, you could jump up if I'm missing something, but if you look at the far south end here along Little Blue Parkway, and I'll see if, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen here. The retail, as part of the rest of the plan, is kind of down in this area, but it's not part of the CID. The CID is focused on our project.
Thank you.
I have a question. Inside the recommended report that you're asking for us to pass, it talks about the 5 cent per square foot, but then when it gets into the 1% sales tax, and this is under number 2, it says that the qualified voters of the district. I didn't see that qualified voter was defined. Is that the directors that are inside the CID? Is that the owners of the property that can vote for the directors? Who are the qualified voters?
I can take that question. David Martin, Gilmore and Bell serve as Economic Development Council for the city. So the reason it's not defined is it is defined in the CID Act. And basically, if you don't have any resident voters, individuals that actually live in the district, it's your property owners that vote.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other questions? And I'm just sort of piggybacking on that. It's hard to tell from that slide in our packet here, but this idea is there's no residential areas that are in existence there. That's all just the project boundaries, essentially. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
I just had a quick question about the budget part of this. So scanning over this, are typically when you go over budgets like this, are emergency services not included into this full realm of budget or the scope? Such as like if we were to bring in a tenant that had biohazard issues or, something like that. So I'm just curious, like, I don't see any type of budget for that. Is that typically left out, or is that included?
I can only speak, to our experience. I haven't seen that in them, but it doesn't mean that it's not normally. I don't know if the city has perspective.
So just in my experience, that is not common. Typically, your general city services like police and fire are not budgeted into a CID. There's a provision that says that you can't lessen the services that are provided to an area, not that that's what you're suggesting. But it is not common to have those basic municipal services added into a CID budget.
And let me clarify, and that's because that area is already covered by city services of fire and police, et cetera.
Correct.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It's time for commission discussion.
Same question I had at our last meeting as to the school districts. Does the addition of a CID cause you any concern? Does it change anything? Are you excited about potential new taxes, et cetera?
Port Osage, I can tell you Port Osage doesn't have concern about this. I mean, this is a great project, it's a great solution to, to maintain and roll. So, we're very excited about it. It's an important part of y'all.
I would speak the same perspective from Blue Springs. It's good to see a plan, and I would have more concern without one.
Independent School District, we are supportive of the CID, and we look forward to partnering with North Point too. But it is good to see everything in writing. We've looked it over, and we're fine with it.
Okay.
Other comments from the commissioners? All right, well, I think we've given everybody a chance who wants to say something. So it would now be appropriate for the commission to take action on this proposal. Do I hear a motion?
I call a motion to approve, to send on the CID recommendation to the city council.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Tom, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Brew?
Yes.
Ms. Shirk?
Yes.
Mr. Templeton?
Yes.
Ms. Wiley?
Yes.
Ms. Zaror?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Roderick? Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Chair Cooney?
Yes.
I'd like the record to show that we had a unanimous vote to approve this.
All right, very good. Don't know that we have any other matters to come before the commission, so we are adjourned. Thank you.